1.7.
Wait, what?
We canceled 1.7. Pav isn't satisfied with our progress, and now we gotta build cool shit until something hype worthy is in the pipeline.
Okay. I didn't. This is new. All right. Well, so then I guess maybe catch me up with that. Is have we decided what's going into? Oh, there he is. I think.
I think we kept the original plan for 1.7, so the goal is still to ship an opt-in version of the new checkout. But for now, we said we won't rush it, and the release is done when it's done. And we'll just keep pushing more 1.6x releases until we're there.
Cool. Okay. Well, I mean that's fine with me. And it sounds good as long as the goal is realistic and it's not like, all right, 3 weeks, Dennis, no family until it's done.
No.
That's fine with
We'll
me.
have some bug fix releases or improvement releases until then. But yeah, I think with what you present today, we're in a good spot to get started actually working on the checkout redesign, and I'm already looking forward to that.
Cool. And I guess this is just for more of my understanding of where you're at, just to balance time and everything. Like for Ellen Bank and the pod server, like, do you feel like you have enough time and like allocation?
Yeah, this is mostly done. Now that we also shipped an update to the Lightning library, I can finish both of those projects, and I'm done on that front. Then,
Cool. Cool. Well, all right. I guess then we could probably just jump into looking at mocks, or I don't know the most effective way that we want to try to address some of this stuff because it's like I see it as like we could break it into. I mean, I posted that issue that was like the full point of sale flow, and I realized that there are multiple faceted pieces there, and I figured we would talk about it here, and I'll probably break that into separate issues that we can tackle as kind of like a um, um, North Star or whatever relative thing to pinpoint like, okay, here's dynamic forms, here's this part of the admin section, just to make it a little bit more tangible what the goal is, as opposed to just like improve the checkout invoice, because that's a huge thing. So I guess I can just share screen and we can just start talking through what we may want to try to, I guess scope it really is probably the smart thing to do at this particular moment. And forgive some of the mess because some of these things are iterations, but you'll probably recognize some of the things that were in that GitHub issue. And obviously some of the point of sale stuff we can sidestep for that. But let's actually go over to the checkout invoice stuff because that's probably a better place to start, and we can figure out what we need, what we should be shipped with this MVP. So yeah, start here. And I want to hear also, like, Dennis, your thoughts, because obviously doing it, you probably have the best idea of how to scope these things from a level of effort on the engineering side of things. But in my mind, I've been seeing it. Feel free to jump in or interject at any point. The metadata stuff, is kind of, we have the front end here. That's part of that step. And then we have the admin panel side of things, which I know we had planned or hoped to leverage some of the stuff that Wutzer had been working on, but I also don't know where that's at, or if that's something that we should expect to do for 1.7 at all, or if this is just something that like we shelved entirely and this is a follow-up release for maybe 1.8, or if this is something that we want to attempt to get in even in the most like basic format of maybe just like a singular input. Even like it could just be, we could start with just there is email or there isn't. But yeah, I'll pause there.
We talked about this in the dev call, and I think for the initial version it makes sense to consider it. And have a fixed form, like in the admin UI, you can choose between whether you want to just ask for an email address, a full address, and we'll define what that means, or no data at all, so that we can just skip this step. But we are going to build this on the base of the flexible form builder that's planned for the future, so that we might be able to extend it with the next version. Yeah, but basically these are the three options I described.
Okay. I think that makes sense. And yeah, I tend to agree that from a, and there's still a little bit of design work, because obviously going back from here to here is important, in case you make a mistake or something like that. So there's things that are on me to finalize. It sounds like I have a bit of time while you guys work through some of that. But yeah, okay. I think that makes sense. I think that it shows the possibility, and I think it's something that people will be extremely excited about. Like even in, because I watched Nate's voltage demo for BTCPay, and like, you know, he was talking about, you know, one of the questions that was asked was pain points, and it's like the ability to enter an address and all that kind of stuff. And again, this may not be something that we release here, but the foundation that we will lay, whether it's like you said, just something static, or like, you know, just email address for this first iteration, you know, being able to do the dynamic forms or support an address for the, you know, the next release or 1.8 or whatever it is would be, I think a lot of people would be very excited about that. And I think that this starts to show the possibility of that. And, you know, I think it'll, you know, if Pav was looking for hype, I think that, you know, there's some real hype in there. So, okay, cool. That sounds good to me. You know, I think the real left or heavy part is definitely in the admin side of that. So, and we can keep kind of refining all that. But I definitely, and I think conceptually, I posted it in the issue, but it sounds like we want to do this in a modular enough way, because like for every checkout flow, whether it's the point of sale, a crowd fund, you know, whatever other iteration, you know, plug-in type of thing, you're going to want to be able to potentially specify metadata according to that instance. So I think it makes sense to, you know, add that as like a category or a section in the plugin of like custom metadata, or, you know, whatever we call it, you know, customer information or whatever we.
Something the user would fill in.
Well, the user is going to fill it in here. Like the end user would fill it in here. I mean, for the admin configuration. Like, say for example, when you create a new point of sale or a crowd fund or whatever, and you know there's the checkout experience, and you want to specify, okay, I want to ask for an email address and an address because I need to ship something or whatever it is to them, and I need that information. That seems like it should be something that you do for every new new point of sale or new crowd fund or new whatever other application that they use it for, correct?
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
our idea was to make it configurable on the store level inside the checkout appearance.
Oh, see, this is the distinction that I'm glad that I asked, because this is the distinction. So by that it's one to many as opposed to you know, like one off for each thing. Because in my mind, I saw it as a different situation where, and I'll just go back to here. I think this is worth discussing. That's the branding stuff. So I saw it as in the point of sale specifically, to where it's like each one has, you know, like what is it? Like, you know,
yeah, I think it depends a bit on how you structure things mentally. So for instance, for 21, we took the route of coming up with a separate store for every app that we use, so that we don't use multiple apps across stores or within one store. But maybe Pav has an idea of how people are using it.
He might be on mute.
Hey guys, sorry, on AirPods, so probably my voice is going
Yeah,
to
no
be
worries.
shit.
No worries.
But yeah, I think that like if we go with the most default thing that 90% of users use, which is just like mostly typical e-commerce buyer information, so address, zip code, state, maybe additional comment field, then it makes sense to add it into the checkout appearance. I think people are already used to modifying everything customer facing into the checkout appearance. So I guess the most basic version should probably be in the store settings under checkout appearance.
Okay,
That's
and
fair.
what's your impression? Do people use multiple apps within one store, or do they set up separate stores per app?
I personally use, so I have two stores. I think of stores mostly as wallets, and
Yeah.
this is like how I personally use it. Don't think that this is how people use it. So I have, for example, one cold storage, which I use to manage like my savings, and then I have like a hot wallet, which is the other store where I handle basically all the apps that I want to be seen by people. So donation page, different type of demos. So I would say multiple apps within a single store would be for me, at least.
Okay, but then this would be an argument for making it configurable on a per app level instead of having one form that's configured on the store level, and then this one particular version of the form gets shown for every app checkout.
Yes, then yes. In this case, yes. But still,
Yep.
I
know you're you're coming from a point where you would say we are overcomplicating it anyways, and we could just have one simple e-commerce checkout form like everyone else does. So I for sure don't want to overcomplicate it. Nevertheless, I think yeah, we would need to make it configurable on the application level, because yeah, we will for sure run into problems where people approach us and say, well, now this app, it doesn't need to ask for any information, and why does it show the whole form then?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So just a very specific scenario in which people request actually buyer addresses is that they use point of sale as an e-shop, so e-commerce type of shop visible online, and in that scenario, most of them need to have like buyer information. For payment requests and anything else, well, actually, it would make sense to have it also not on app, but also for payment requests, because if I was like invoicing clients, I would probably appreciate having their information within an invoice when I do my accounting, right? So maybe that's one thing to consider as well. But then we are probably overscoping it. So I'm not sure. Either we tackle this specific scenario in which people want to have like buyer address just in the point of sale app, and then in that case, what Dstruk has been creating makes sense. But if there is a need, then we would probably need to extend the scope of it to include in other stuff as well. Because I'm not sure if they will just collect information through the point of sale. We cannot assume that maybe they will need simple invoice like through API and then collect it, even though they already have that option through API itself, or will they use like payment request to invoice clients, and then legally they're required maybe to collect information. I don't know. We need to talk to users a little bit more about this. But one thing I'm sure, and that is like the ones that are requesting buyer addresses are the people who don't have e-commerce websites. They just use BTCPay Server to either accept donations or use point of sale. So those are two cases on top of my mind, but maybe you guys have some other ideas as well.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, yeah, it's good to outline all the instances and the way that people use it, because you're right that if you're using some other point of sale system or something that enables that kind of thing, this is less relevant for you. But then I guess you could argue for something like this enables more flexibility and it enables them to outside of the application itself or their current configuration, this enables people to use BTCPay more standalone than they might have previously been doing, which, I guess it just depends on what our goals for BTCPay are long term. But in my head, it's like, yeah, being able to support and stand up a BTCPay instance where, the things where you extend it that other platforms enable is, rambling a little bit, but it's like, yeah, you use Shopify for the very specific things that they enable, but BTCPay is the backend for all of this stuff. Whereas like this blurs that line a little bit and makes that better. But yeah, I agree with you, Pav, that probably talking to you.
One more argument, Andy, there would be that people, so people use apps to request buyer information, but now I skipped what I wanted to say. I don't know. I wanted to say something smart, and it was, I swear, eloquent enough, but then I just lost it. Too tired today. Anyway, if I get back to it, I will let you know. But it was something related to having like information within the app. Oh yeah, so people actually expect to have like something very tangible, and that can also be another like we can integrate this within a completely new plugin or an app in that case, because if we're sure that people only need this when they have like e-commerce, they use BTCPay Server as a store. In that case, we can simply create a very simple app, and within it, we can just add all the crazy things that we want, and that app can just be called, e-shop or something like that. Whereas point of sale would then be used as a keypad or simple, add to cart. So we wouldn't be adding this specific functionality within the point of sale, because to my mind, it still doesn't make sense to have this into point of sale itself. Because if I was like a merchant and requesting, maybe in some countries you do have like an option to add your name when you're making a payment for a coffee or whatever. But like, I really don't think that's the case. I just want to have like items, and it should spit out the amount. So people who want this functionality use BTCPay Server as an e-commerce software, and in that case, it might make sense to have like a completely different plugin in this instance, or a case that would just allow them to customize that experience, which would basically mean us stealing functionality from point of sale, adding all of that, and just attaching the customer data there. Just one thing to consider as well, but I'm sure Dennis will probably figure out the smartest approach to this. I'm just giving another angle for this.
Yeah, while you were talking, I took notes and wrote Cooks about it. I'll discuss this with him tomorrow, and we'll see what the best approach is. I can also imagine something like we do with the default currency, where you specify a general setting at the store level, but get the chance to override it on the app level. And I already got some ideas, but I need to talk it through with Cooks tomorrow.
Yep. That sounds very smart. I love it.
No, I love it. This is good, and glad we raised the issue, because I mean, and what you're saying, Pav, makes a lot of sense, because like right now, right? I mean, you have this point of sale, and these are just different types of views for it. But then there might be a more involved case where it's like e-commerce, or like the whole package effectively. To summarize that, is something that maybe people want, versus, like you said, maybe it doesn't make that much sense from a point of sale type of thing, or maybe we have a decent idea of what they want, which, to Dennis's point, we do a default, and then there's like an override, and it's something that is here. I guess it just depends on how we structure that, but I think it makes sense from a modular perspective for this dynamic form creation and this kind of core piece, that we can hypothetically insert something like that as part of the core functionality, and you can extend it in the moment.
For this, my idea, at least for version 1, would be that we just have a simple drop down or radio buttons where the user can choose between 3 different options, ask for no data at all, just ask for the email or ask for a full address, and we are going to define whatever that means then. And the latter would be something we could then make also configurable in a next version.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense, and it sounds like it scopes down the engineering effort, but still sets us up for a good foundation to extend it. And then we can get. We don't have to build this really complex system and then get feedback on that. We can kind of iteratively build something, that we know can be injected into the places it needs to, but users can give us more feedback and see if they like it or they're confused by it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Because coming up with this configurator thing is a whole feature on its own.
Oh, definitely. That's why I'm like, even as I posted that issue, I was like, this is a whole thing. I don't know where we're at, and I'm not going to sit and propose that we do this like matrix, fucking complicated, you can do this type of input and this type of number field and blah, blah. It's just, it's way too much. And typically with this, it's like, email, first name, last name, address. There's a subset of things that are needed. So cool. That sounds good to me. I think it's like seeing implementation, it's hard to say. Like I think hearing users' feedback on that and whether they expect it. So I can see the case being made if they want to override it. I think it probably makes sense where there's defaults where you only have to configure it once, because that's nice. And then, I configure it at the store level. It's like, cool, these are all the details that I'll probably need for this store. And then at a particular app level, it's like, I don't need the first name, I don't need the last name or whatever for this point of sale thing, but I really need the email and the address. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, okay, I think that alleviates the concern.
If I can throw another input there. So if we really listen to what people are asking, is they would, in 90% cases, they would say, I need a way to collect buyer's address. So we should probably just ship with that, like the way to collect buyer address for them. And they ask this because they go to invoice and then they see payment information and they see name, buyer address, and they see all of these data, but it's not filled in. So then they assume that there is a way to fill in the data so that they could fully fulfill order through the BTCPay itself. So I would say, let's just satisfy this specific demand, because I haven't heard I want to collect buyer addresses, but I also want them to upload images or maybe give comments, even though additional comment field would definitely make sense in this scenario as well as a metadata.
The cases where we show that data, is this coming from an integration like WooCommerce, for example? So what's the way to fill those fields right now? This must be coming from an external integration.
Yes, API, definitely external. Yeah. WooCommerce would definitely fill that, and people who really want customization, they're mostly likely already using Greenfield and already have all of these options. But for every simple mom and dad shop, let's try to just ship it with a way for them to fully fulfill order and information, like additional comments field, first name, last name, address, first row, second row, country, whatever it is, another field, and then zip code, so they can simply ship it to people, I guess.
Okay, so the plan is then to use these existing fields and offer a form for it. Boom.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and then we can build on hide or remove or whatever, and that could be something that you see here. Like, here are all the things that will be visible, and it could be as simple as I don't want that, and then point of sale is good. But it's configured in the store levels thing, which actually makes a lot of sense because, thinking about our flow from the very beginning, okay, I set up a store, okay, now go configure your store, here's my branding, my little logo thing that changes here, brand color, whatever other kind of customization things. Again, this is very forward thinking, but then it's like, okay, customize the rates and the checkout experience. And then, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then you go create your app, or I guess in this case, it'll be a plugin. Then you configure everything there, and it just becomes checking something off or toggling it, like custom payments or tips or whatever. And it's a little bit more simple in that regard.
Let's talk about this brand color thing for a moment, because one thing I intend to do in general is to make the checkout view or also the other public-facing views like payment request, etc., to make them easier themable for the user, so that they don't have to override CSS selectors and everything we've put in there, but just have a simple set of maybe 10 variables where they can define colors, borders, background, etc. And for how would this brand color thing work? I mean, you must have thought about it too, and this seems to me like a a way easier thing than the next thing the admin could do, and define the variables I just talked about. So is this brand color thing something you've thought about to the extent that, well, it just needs one color and this is the most basic form of customizing things for them?
Yes. This like to your point, I'm thinking about the same type of things. Like even if that's something where we have to, I mean, there's significant code, or maybe not that significant, but I'm anticipating more significant code needing to be written for that. As we modify these things. But yeah, this just becomes a situation where it's like by default it would be our green, and then maybe you want to change this to like red or something like that, and then those key like CTAs and areas that I don't know if this would affect the admin panel. I think that's probably more than it needs to, but like you said, like payment requests or the checkout invoice, or like maybe the point of sale, like these might become a certain color. Like the full extent to which it gets applied to everything, I don't want to say I haven't thought about that, because it's like that could be the case, and you probably wouldn't want to make this red. But then again, I guess there are people who might have stores where they might want to make something like this red, and we just treat alerts and messages and like the typical information error alert type of coloring the same. But yeah, like something like this, if you make the brand color, your CTA, primary CTA buttons would likely be red too. Same goes for like your invoice and all that other kind of stuff. But again, I think this is just kind of starting to inject the idea, even if we just start building things with that in mind, or just to propose, like, is this something we want to support? Because like, I agree, like hard coding and writing CSS for people who are just trying to spin up a store, they want a little bit of customization because maybe their brand color, their basic brand color is purple, and they want to feel like it's not BTCPay specific green, and they want to make it a little purple. This is a very easy place that they could change that. Yeah. And obviously, we could go more in depth if we wanted. Like brand color, it could be like CTA color. Like we could break it into that, but I think that warrants a bigger discussion. So some of these things, like they're rough, but they're proposals.
I'm asking about it because if we can distill it down to this one thing where they can choose a brand color, and then the basics are configured, then we're good. But I want to prevent us from getting into the slippery slope where well, they also get to choose a background color, and then they might also want to configure different link colors and so on. And this will go ahead.
I talked to like there are two things when customizing. So you have store users or server users who run a store, and then they want to customize basically checkout page, because for them it's all customers see, it's like the invoice page. So just a logo and some colors would definitely be enough for them. And then you have server admins, which are, I talked to like quite a few of them recently, and specifically regarding white labeling. So what they want in most cases is just to replace our logo with theirs, maybe a little bit of coloring, but even that is out of scope. So just replacing the logo and text, that's what they do. And for that, right now, they need to fork our code, do changes, and then they need to keep up with main branch all the time. So if we can reduce that stress for them and allow them to basically be their own branding and processors without even mentioning BTCPay Server, it would be really cool. Like, yes, for us, it is really bad that, people aren't giving us credits. But yeah, these people shouldn't be able, like they're spreading BTCPay Server at the end of the day. We should make it easier for them to have their own branding and operate under their own business. So those are like two cases. And I would really scope them to something very simple. Whoever wants to do something crazy, let them fork and like do crazy things.
I mean, for the back end, they can do all kinds of crazy shit with the new theming approach we came up with based on Bootstrap 5. So they could also just replace the logo using CSS and so on. But let's not get into that. I mean, when we're already building something like that for the customer facing part, we can also integrate it for the admin side. But my general question about this brand color thing was to, as I said, prevent us from going somewhere where we extend this list of things and let's just see how this list of variables evolves while we are building the new version of the checkout, and then Andy and I can talk some more about how to make it configurable in the admin view.
Yeah, no, that I mean, again, with this great discussion, and I'm glad I included it because this is like something for discussion of maybe this is something we want to support. I don't know if people care about this, and to what Pav had said as well, it's probably not even something that people want that much of, but maybe in the future we do something that's very specific to the invoice. But you're right, Dennis, it opens up Pandora's box.
It's kind of the same for the logo. Here you have two different versions of the logo which a user might upload, and once we start doing that, then we'll also define a place where those logos are used, and then for one for one store this might not work for people, so they would expect then the full logo to appear here and there, and while we are showing just the smaller version there, I try to trim it down to just one logo upload, and that's it.
Yeah, I thought about that as well. And then the use cases that you're sitting here talking about, it's like some people, we could do something like that where it's like it's always text, underneath or beside, depending on the way that we choose to format it. Like in some instances, I have it underneath, like the invoice. I think all of them it's underneath, and it could just be something where we format the text with our regular bold or whatever as the thing. So we certainly could, and I was kind of anticipating that for the initial launch, is that we would probably only have upload your logo mark. I think I'm maybe a little bit jaded in the respect that like a lot of people they'll upload something that looks really shitty here, and then it ends up looking bad. But I guess that ends up becoming more on them than us. To figure out if it looks bad, it looks bad. And I guess in that particular case, it's similar to the customer information stuff where it's like, if they want more customization, they want more stuff, we limit it at the beginning, build a solid foundation. And if people are really like, man, I really want like a full logo thing like this, blah, 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 then we can build that in as opposed to, trying to support every use case. Because you're right. I think there will be instances where people are like, well, I want a check mark to like only show the regular one, because this, at least in this instance, it would override everything so that this is used in all of the cases. So it's just a switch case for us. But okay, I'm happy to proceed that way. And I think that makes a lot of sense, certainly if we're going to try to do this for an MVP soon.
Yeah, so if you'd ask me, I'd say let's start with one square version of the logo, and we'll get feedback on that, and maybe add another version. But I can already see things or instances where this won't do what the user expects, and they'll ask for even more configuration options then.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Cool. I mean, I'm all for scoping all these things down. I just want to see, like, it's like, yeah, this makes sense. You know, how are things configured? And yeah, set those expectations. So, and yeah, I'm glad that this will be easier to build as well. Okay, cool. So that kind of eliminates at least some of the admin panel stuff. I mean, there's still the thing about like opting into the checkout invoice stuff, but I think we've had more discussions about that. And I think that probably is maybe also something in the checkout invoice experience. And I'll take all of this feedback that we've had and pop it into this so that we have like a proper view and we can look at it objectively. But I think, yeah, it's a situation of, okay, you configure your branding here if you want that. You configure your customer information in the checkout area. You might override it here if we even have that support to begin with. And then, you know, then it comes down to, okay, what does the checkout view look like? And then you can, you know, keep what we have currently or opt into, you know, the, you know, BIP21 style. Obviously, we'll then have the metadata at the beginning. Then we step through, okay, fill in, you know, my email address, you know, additional comment address, whatever it might be there. You get your invoice that's generated, and then, you know, we've all seen this, and for the most part, like, there's probably still edge cases, and if we want to talk about those, feel free. But, you know, step through, you know, details of that particular thing, partial payments, you know, things that I'm also still working through. I figure, you know, and Dennis and I have talked 1 or 2 calls ago about edge cases and trying to figure out some of these things. Sorry for the sounds. You know, edge cases and working through some of these things as we are building some of this. Of course, my cat wants to yell at me too. And, you know, we'll work through all of these as we're implementing some of this and testing it, because I'm sure there's probably things that I've forgotten or stuff that comes up. And, you know, we have stuff like the side shift and various other, I don't know what to call them, you know, just things that are going to raise questions about this flow, because, you know, this touches on so many aspects of BTCPay. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it from a full flow perspective. And then there's obviously like the fallback multi-payment stuff where it becomes multiple step. But, you know, in that way, it's like if we introduce, these are old knocks, I haven't touched these since, you know, but however we handle like the back state, you know, it'll probably be a similar type of formatting where it's like, you know, you go back and then, you know, it generates the QR or the address of whatever the particular coin or whatever particular situation is. And ideally, you know, this is very similar to what we would do here. It would just be for that specific thing, you know, Bitcoin, Lightning, whatever it is. And,
yeah, I think
there's bigger questions here.
In terms of flexibility, I think the best we can do is to think of it as a multi-step wizard, so that plugins will get the chance to hook into that flow and extend the data that that gets submitted in the end. I just wanted to stress the point that I think that having this as a multi-step wizard also makes sense from a technical standpoint.
Agreed. And yeah, and these are the things that as you dig into it, like I anticipate there will be a bit of back and forth in between, because this is just kind of like, here's ideal case, and, you know, it's never quite that way. But, you know, if we do break it into multiple steps, it's like you said, you know, it enables people to, you know, we're giving them the tools to where it's like you just go back, you know, it's going from there to there or there to there. And then, yeah, maybe if somebody's building some plugin or some other additional thing that requires whatever metadata in between these stages, you know, that enables them to do that. And, you know, if they're not supporting multiple payment methods at all, yeah, the most ideal experience to push things forward would be the BIP21 stuff. You know, and obviously some people will have problems with QR code size and support and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I'm still very confident that this is the direction to push things forward. And yeah, I think the fact that it's opt-in will be, I think it eliminates a lot of the fear and stress of if you don't want to care about any of this, or it's still too early for you in your store, or it screws things up, then keep using what is currently the legacy checkout experience, and that'll be fine.
Pav, how will we approach this? Will we make this BIP21 stuff the default, or are we still having the option like we do currently, where people get to choose, and if they don't opt in for BIP21, they'll have to decide whether or not to pay with Bitcoin or Lightning?
Yeah, great question. I don't know. Ideally, I would love this to be default and people to understand that there isn't differences and everything works perfect. But like, I think for now we can just keep it as something that we think of as an ideal experience that maybe we can recommend to people. But I would just keep it as it is now and have like maybe an option to switch. But I know Andy has been designing for the unification by default, so I wouldn't be opposed to it. But maybe I can talk to Cash App, because they have been proposing this within the Cash App, and they have like millions and millions of users. Maybe I can see what's the reason why they still haven't rolled this one in. They apparently have data around different devices and how they work and what were the problems regarding this. Like, if Cash App decides this is good enough, I don't see why we shouldn't. But yeah, maybe I can add a note and ask them. I mean, it looks like an ideal experience. Like, look at this, just scan. But would like these people that are at this stage of adoption, that know Lightning, know that there is a difference, like, would they maybe be confused? That's what I'm thinking now.
Yeah,
like, if you don't see...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't see like a pill, basically to switch between, because that's most of the payment processors do. They have like a pill menu where you could just switch between one or the other. So I would just give it a little bit more time. Maybe add that thing that there is a pill for people to switch when there is BTC and Lightning, but also offer an option and maybe try to promote it, try to ask people for feedback publicly, and just communicate it as the future default for sure.
Yeah, in general, I think it's at least at the stage we're at with adoption and what you just described, it's good that we have this option configurable. And the thing you could talk to with Cash App is whether or not we make it default or opt in to have it. Because right now, this isn't the default, and yeah, you have to actively check the checkbox. I want to use a unified QR code or whatever we call it. But in general, I think it's good that we have this configuration option, because then we can also switch between the states where we would insert the step where you would choose between Bitcoin or Lightning before we show the QR code and generate the invoice.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why I asked on today's call whether or not we want to have like currencies before the invoice. But then again, one thing that BTCPay does well that others don't is that we immediately speed up invoice for people to pay. No complications, no forms, nor steps. Like, you scan it and bam, it's done. I'm a little bit hesitant of adding all of these options. I assume that merchants know like what majority of their users wants to pay with. Like, we talked to Mike in Riga, he knows like majority uses BTC, others use Lightning is like 3% of their use in his specific case, in his specific business, of course. Yeah. So he definitely wouldn't default to it. So I would, as you said, leave these at least for now configurable and just leave people to play around with it. Like, if you're a very merchant that deals with less tech savvy people and you still want Lightning, maybe you would opt in for unified code and just let people decide. But if you're the same merchant but dealing in an area where, you know, poor internet connections, poor mobile devices that cannot scan this heavy QR code, maybe you would just then opt in for one or the other and then allow people to switch. So yeah, let's for now leave it as is and design with something else in mind. But definitely, I would love to see this default in the future because, in my opinion, there shouldn't be distinction. Wallets and everything else should be designed smart enough to recognize this, and the users shouldn't have to think about it. They just need to scan QR code and bam.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the comfortable position that everything around this is configurable. For instance, the store owner can also choose which would be the default payment method on checkout. So the thing we're left with then is choosing how we want to present all of this to the user. Because if we take the approach, like you said, we want to speed up the process as much as possible, then the first step should definitely show the payment option of the default payment method selected by the store owner. And then we need to figure out how do we give the user an obvious way to switch between these options in case he doesn't want to go with the default. Versus the other part where we don't make that decision beforehand and present the user the different options before he even gets to see a QR code and payment page.
Yeah, the question goes, do users really not know the differences, or do they just want to pay with Bitcoin via BTCPay Server? So yeah, I wouldn't introduce the ability for them to trigger the default, even though that probably could be useful, and perhaps we can design a plugin for it. Like if there are, I don't know, merchants that accept thousands of shitcoin, maybe they want different options. But at the end of the day, the majority of users we are designing for use Bitcoin on chain and Lightning, and we should definitely cater for that. And in that case, there isn't really maybe a reasonable I guess, excuse to add, do you want this or that? No, you just show the default. Merchants usually know on-chain maybe the default, and then they can switch to Lightning. Or if it's Lightning focused store dealing with early adopters, then they would default to Lightning, and then you can switch with the pill again, build menu, and switch to Lightning. So like an on and off button, that kind of.
Yeah, the thing is, it becomes really tricky because everything here is so configurable. If it's just for Bitcoin and Lightning, we could have a way more intuitive interface and just use the pills, like you said. But it becomes really tricky if we are running on the altcoin build and the merchant also has set up Litecoin and Monero for it.
Yes, let them drown in their own misery and have a drop-down menu in that case. And I don't think we should be designing for those, because long-term goal isn't really catering to them, and God knows if any of these shitcoins will be alive in a few years. So
Okay,
I would definitely wouldn't base our design process around and them, though I would keep them in mind and maybe offer them a drop down or something where they can either choose shapeshift or things like that. So.
Okay, but I'm in general I'm with you on that. But this would mean to me that we are thinking about the payment method selection not in terms of a separate step within the wizard, which would give us more room to present all those options, but rather go with an enhanced approach of what we're doing on the checkout right now, where we are presenting drop down or whatever we come up with, but have it on the same page where the QR code is displayed, and then the user can switch to a payment method that's not the default, but the default is always shown first and fast.
I mean, technically speaking, we can maybe even make that configurable, and altcoin build would have this screen where they would be able to pick whatever, and then BTC Lightning would just have build menu. I'm not sure how technically challenging that is.
Yeah,
but
we talked about
we could
this
do A/B
initially,
testing,
yeah.
basically.
We could do this, but it would or yeah, it would increase the testing burden on us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think this
my reasoning for this is like there shouldn't be a distinction between Lightning and Bitcoin in the future, and us like prompting them, do you want to pay Lightning or Bitcoin? Like that would confuse people more than like just showing them a QR, then scanning it, and maybe it won't work. Okay, maybe I'll try this then, and then they will switch. But I'm again assuming how users would behave. Maybe they'll just rage and drop the cart or whatever.
Yeah, I think the best way to go about it is that we'd have 3 different options. So the first and most complex one would be we detect that we are running the altcoin build and we have more than 2 payment methods. Then we are going to show what we see in the middle here, where Bitcoin, Lightning, Liquid, and Chivo are right now. This would be a separate step where the user gets to choose the payment method before he continues, versus the other case where we are running the Bitcoin only build. And at that point, the decision is, has the merchant turned on BIP21? If so, we just display a simple QR code. And if not, we also display the pill toggle between Bitcoin and Lightning like we do right now.
Completely agree. And just one quick note, there are merchants who run Bitcoin build but use like SideShift as a plugins, and I do expect more and more of them to do that, because like these nodes, that LTC node is like completely always stuck. Doge node always, like, people complain about them because nobody maintains it. So it maybe add just a little bit, like if the plugin can maybe also influence that and then offer like like basically the screen if the plugin is activated, that would be also, I guess, good. But yeah, or we can just have some conversion button. But I think actually just selecting it as a payment method would probably be a way better UX.
Yeah, I mean, technically, it's not ideal that there will be multiple permutations of what the screen might end up like. But from a user's perspective, I can totally see that why we shouldn't have one version that caters to all possible options. And because, as I said, I think we might end up with a way better experience for the default cases or the 90% cases. Yeah, okay, I got a rough
Great.
idea, but we need to build it. And yeah.
One more thing, Dennis, don't like forget that we will roll this as a like optional thing as well, this new checkout. So we will actually get user feedback and iron things out as we improve. So we don't have to like design perfectly right from the start.
Yeah, I really like that we're doing that, but I also want to make this option or this new version so nice that people will want to switch to it.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, this shouldn't feel like something that's like, I don't know about that. This is like, whoa, holy shit, this is great. I'm definitely gonna make the switch. Because then, yeah, we end up in a case where it's like maintaining legacy, and I think to some extent we'll probably have to do that anyway. But yeah, a newer experience, ideally is something that we encourage people and people are excited to switch over to. 100%. Cool. And yeah, and obviously, Dennis, you and I kick around things, and as the process goes, we'll surface things, and when we start building the next call, we can discuss some of the trade-offs, because a lot of these things are still somewhat theoretical, and it may not be as big of a challenge. And the only problem with any of this stuff becomes the testing, because it is like having all these shit coins that are in there, and the way that people use them, we just can't anticipate what all of these other people who are using them are doing, and that's okay as well, but it opens up a bigger box than just the BIP21 potential pill toggle type of situation. But it'd be nice to be able to sidestep that and move to the most ideal experience where we're only supporting that, or this altcoin build effectively. It really is what it is. So okay. Well, cool. I mean, is that enough information for you, Dennis, to get started on some of this stuff? And like, do you feel like we have a solid picture from start to finish?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Well, yeah, I got to run here in 2 or 3 minutes, but as usual, fantastic call. I'm really excited to start working on some of this stuff and implementing things. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we'll learn in the process of doing this, and it'll make everything else seem even easier when we inevitably finish this up, because this is probably one of the bigger tasks outside of 1.4 that we've undertaken, certainly as our little front end team. But I'm excited.
Me too. Yeah. This will
any last words?
Keep building wizards. That's all I have to say. Enjoy your day or evening.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, guys. Have a great evening. We'll talk soon.
Same. Let's fucking go.
Have a good night. Cheers.
Cheers.
Later, guys.
For too long, we've relied on trusted third parties to process digital payments. The world is changing, and so are your customers. As cash payments decrease, digital payments become the standard. But existing apps charge transaction fees and lack privacy. BTCPay is a Bitcoin payment platform. It gives control over your business back to you, helping people achieve financial freedom with donations, payments, and more. Help your family and onboard your friends. Use BTCPay to host multiple stores and become a payment platform of your own. While the world changes around you, stay in control of your finances. It's simple to use, censorship resistant, and completely free. This is more than a payment platform. It's transforming digital payments as fast as the world around us.